Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to break down a 5-year framework for financial freedom. And let's be clear, this is not some get-rich-quick promise, not at all. This is a path, and it's built on straight-up math, the magic of compounding, and, good old-fashioned discipline. It's about turning that vague hope of someday into a concrete plan.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. How many more mornings are you going to wake up to that awful sound just because you need that paycheck? For most of us, retirement feels like this fuzzy, far-off idea, so we just kind of push it to the back of our minds. But what if there was a clearer roadmap?
Well, this is it. We're calling it the 2-3-5 Freedom Blueprint, and it's exactly what it sounds like, an actionable countdown. One that can totally change your timeline to financial independence by showing you exactly how your money can start working way, way harder than you do.
All right, every great journey starts somewhere, and ours begins right here, with stage 1. Now, this first part, it's probably the most important, and honestly, the most difficult period of the entire plan. This is where you build everything.
So here it is, the entire roadmap laid out. You can see the 3 distinct stages. Years 1 and 2, that's the foundation. Years 3 and 4, we hit the acceleration. And then year 5 and beyond, that's the explosion. Your only job? Survive each stage without quitting right before the magic is about to happen.
So those first 2 years are what we call the invisible years. And that name is perfect. Because psychologically, this is a war against your own impatience. You're putting in the work, you're making sacrifices, but you look at your account balance and it just seems stuck. It really feels like absolutely nothing is happening.
And what's so interesting here is the contrast. On the left, you see how it feels, just slow, frustrating, you start to doubt the whole thing. But on the right, that's what's actually happening under the surface. You're forging the habit. You're proving to yourself that this compounding thing is real. The financial roots are spreading deep. This is what we call your awakening.
Okay, let's move on to stage 2 and see where this goes. So, once you've survived those invisible years, you get to enter the acceleration phase. And this is where that little snowball you started pushing gets heavier, and it starts rolling much, much faster on its own.
So, the huge thing here is a mental shift. Most of us are stuck in linear thinking. Addition. You put in $200, you've got $200. Simple. But in this stage, you finally get to see compounding, multiplication in action. Your profits become these little workers that go out and recruit more dollars for you. They never sleep. The challenge here is learning to trust it when you finally have something to lose.
And this quote just perfectly illustrates the biggest mistake people make. They see a decent balance, they get a little nervous or maybe just impatient, and they cash out. It's this psychological trap of locking in a small win. But all that work you did in the invisible years, that was just the fuel to get the plane moving. Cashing out now means you never even leave the ground.
Now this is when it gets really, really exciting. By the end of this stage, that growth curve just gets so much steeper. The money your portfolio earns in a single year can actually be more than everything it earned in the first 2 years put together. I mean, think about that. That is the reward for winning that psychological battle.
And that brings us to the final stage, right? The one everyone is dreaming about, the explosion. This is where that curve that once looked almost flat just suddenly shoots upward like a rocket launch.
This chart right here shows the exact moment we are aiming for. It's called the crossover point. It's when the annual growth from your investments, that's the taller bar on the right, becomes bigger than your own contributions from your paycheck, the shorter bar. At this moment, your money is officially out-earning your effort.
Reaching that crossover point is how you get to your freedom number. And it is so important to understand this is not about becoming a generic millionaire. It's a personal number. It's the point where your investments are spinning off enough cash to cover your specific lifestyle, whatever that looks like for you.
And what does hitting that number really mean? It's simple. It means freedom. It is the moment you break the link between your time and money. Work is no longer something you have to do to survive. It's something you get to choose to do. Your time is finally your own again.
So that's the blueprint. That's the what and the why. But how do you actually start your own 5-year countdown? Today. Let's get practical and break down the liftoff sequence.
It really just comes down to these 4 simple steps. First, pick an amount you can realistically invest every single month. Second, choose a simple investment vehicle, something like an index fund that tracks the whole market. No need to overcomplicate things. Third, and this is the secret sauce, automate everything. Make discipline the default setting. And finally, number 4, set your date. Write down a date 5 years from today and really commit, to not touching it until then.
As you go on this journey, you've got to keep these principles front and center.
Small, consistent contributions will always be big, sporadic ones. Don't try to time the market, just spend time in the market. And look, when the market gets shaky, and it will, just remember that volatility is the price of admission for long-term growth. The only thing that can truly derail you is abandoning the plan.
So, we end right back where we started. 5 years are going to pass no matter what. That's a guarantee. The only question is, what will you have to show for it? Will you look back and be so incredibly grateful you started this countdown today? Or will you just be wishing you had? The choice, as always, is yours.